camera was not found by the people who dropped it. It was discovered by chance by social workers visiting the property on that day, lying in the corner of a room on the first floor, partially covered by a dirty rag as if it had been kicked aside or dropped in a hurry and never ever retrieved. Nobody at the scene knew where it had come from, who it belonged to, or how long it had been lying there. The footage on it was uploaded online in 2015, and for a period of time, it sat in the category that most unexplained footage ends up in. Interesting, circulated, and ultimately assumed to be staged by the majority of people who watched it.
Oh, stop.
Could you overlay a track of someone in that trailer? I'm checking them out. I'm not trying to.
That assumption turned out to be more complicated than it first appeared, because it was abandoned. The camera recorded a group entering an empty room, moving with the caution of people exploring an unfamiliar place. Then the footage began to break apart as audio and video distorted. Interference that could have been technical but felt unsettling in the context of the abandoned house. The camera caught one young woman's face frozen in unmistakable terror, a reaction that seemed completely genuine. Seconds later, the group fled in panic, leaving chaotic footage as they rushed downstairs. On the first floor, the camera's light flickered repeatedly before going dark. That was where the recording ended.
People usually pay like thousands of dollars to see this. You're gonna love it.
Oh, Jesus, hi. Hi, Jesus.
I'm like using. Oh, look at this door. This door is like pizza.
For a time, neither the people in the video nor the owner of the camera could be identified, which fed the speculation in both directions. Those who believed it was genuine found the mystery behind it compelling, and those who assumed it was staged pointed to the same mystery as evidence of a hoax constructed for some attention. Then the channel's creator updated the video description with information that changed the conversation significantly. The original owners of the camera had come forward. In the world of lost and abandoned footage, this almost never happens. The people behind unexplained recordings rarely ever surface to provide some context, which is part of what keeps so many of these clips unresolved for so many years. These ones did, and what they explained about what had happened inside that house was not the admission of a staged horror piece, the kind that skeptics had been waiting for. The group had gone into the house to film amateur horror content for their audience, a short spooky film, the kind of low-budget project that enthusiasts produce in abandoned buildings regularly. They knew the house was empty. They had a plan for what they were going to shoot, and the fear that they intended to capture on camera was meant to be entirely manufactured. What they encountered when they got inside was not what they had prepared for.
Could you overlay a track of someone in that trailer? I'm checking them out. I'm not trying to.
Strange noises began coming from the same room where the camera equipment started malfunctioning. The two things happening in close enough proximity that separating them felt impossible. And then, in the moment when they decided they had experienced enough and began moving towards the exit, something emerged from the shadows and lunged at them, a dark figure moving fast enough and with enough physical presence that the group scattered in genuine panic. panic, dropping the camera in the process and leaving it behind on the floor, where social service workers would find it in an unknown amount of time later, covered by a dirty rag in the corner of an empty room.
Go back!
Whether what lunged at them from those shadows was a person, an animal, or something that belongs to a category that neither of those words adequately covers has never been definitively established. The group came forward to explain what happened, but the thing that they saw in that room has never been identified. There are certain categories of footage that resist easy classification, and a video that surfaced from a now deleted YouTube channel falls into one of the most difficult of all, a recorded exorcism. The kind of footage that generates fierce disagreement, not just about what is actually happening on screen, but about the entire framework through which it should be understood.
Mau, bagus. Ikut saya. Asyhadu. Allah. Ilaha. Illallah.
The video had been lost for some time before it resurfaced, the kind of clip that disappears from the internet and then reappears years later through channels that nobody can fully trace back to an original source. The upload that brought it to a wider audience came from a channel that had since been deleted, which means that the footage now exists only in the copies that spread before it was taken down, stripped of whatever context the original description might have provided. What the camera recorded is deeply uncomfortable to watch, regardless of where you land on the question of what it actually shows.
Aku bersaksi bahwa tidak ada Tuhan yang disembah kecuali Allah. Dan aku bersaksi bahwa Muhammad utusan Allah. Wahai Idrus, kamu sekarang sudah Islam, kamu mau ubah nama atau nama kamu yang semula Idrus? Idrus. Itu saja? Idrus. Itu saja?
A young Muslim woman is at the center of the footage, and from the opening moments of the recording, it is clear that the people around her believe something is wrong in a way that goes beyond ordinary illness or distress. A religious leader stands beside her, positioned with the authority of someone who has been brought in specifically for this purpose, and the atmosphere in the room has the quality of a ritual rather than a medical intervention. It's deliberate, it's structured, and proceeding according to a framework that the participants understand even if the camera doesn't fully capture it. The exorcist addressed whatever he believed was inside the woman, asking its name. What followed was truly unsettling. The voice that answered sounded unlike her own, quietly saying, Azul. As the exorcist continued reciting verses from the Quran, the entity responded, Please, I protect her. I want to be her friend. She is good. Those words became one of the most debated parts of the footage. Rather than sounding openly hostile, the presence claimed to be protective. Whether this reflected a genuine supernatural encounter or the woman's mind under extreme psychological stress remains a question the recording never answers.
Sekarang kamu satu agama dengan saya. Maka itu kamu tidak boleh sekali-kali menyakiti manusia lagi. Boleh? Kamu berjanji dan kamu tidak akan masuk lagi. Oke, kamu balik ya. Kamu balik ke alam kamu dan kamu jangan sekali-kali mengganggu manusia.
The assistants in the room move to restrain her arms as the ritual continues, and what the camera captures in those moments is physical and raw in a way that is pretty much hard to attribute entirely to performance. She screams and struggles against the people holding her with a force and a desperation that reads as genuine rather than constructed. Her body responding to the ritual as if the words of those verses is producing a real and immediate effect on whatever is happening inside her. Then the footage ends, not with a resolution, not with an indication of whether the ritual succeeded or even failed, not with any information about what state the young woman was left in when the camera stopped rolling. It simply just cuts, leaving the room mid-ritual, and the outcome entirely unknown. Nobody who has come forward in connection with this footage has been able to fill in what happened after the final frame. The channel that originally uploaded it is now gone. The woman in the video has never been identified, and the entity that said it wanted to be her friend has never been heard from again, at least not on camera. The YouTube channel called The Soul Catcher belongs to a man whose relationship with his clown doll collection crossed a line at some point between hobby and obsession, and the footage that he began documenting after a particular night in his basement is the kind of content that divides people cleanly into two groups: those who watch it and find it genuinely unsettling, and those who watch it and find it genuinely concerning for reasons that have nothing to do with the paranormal. The doll is at the center of everything, and his name is Clyde. He is hollow. He is part of a larger collection that the channel's creator has accumulated over time, and he lives in the basement alongside the rest of the dolls in what the owner clearly considers a carefully maintained space. The night that changed the dynamic between the collector and his collection began with sound rather than sight. He and his father were woken up in the early hours of the morning by laughter coming from the basement. Not the kind of laughter of a person who has broken in, but an eerie sound that both men immediately associated with the only things they knew were down there. They went down to investigate.
It's a nice painting of a medieval knight holding a shield in one hand and a flag in the other. Now apparently it's not the actual painting that's causing the activity, it's the actual wood. Apparently this person went out, got the wood from a haunted location located somewhere in Ontario, trimmed it nicely.
What they found when they reached the basement was that something had changed. A cross that had been hanging on the wall beside the cabinet where the dolls were kept in now was lying on the floor. It was broken. The cabinet itself showed signs that something had been pressing against it from the inside, and the owner described it in the footage with a certainty that suggested he had moved past the stage of looking for alternative explanations. Something had been trying to get out.
So I will be investigating this and hoping to capture something. So guys, stay tuned, and that's coming up soon. Okay, so I'd like to continue with investigation with Clyde. Now, for several nights now, I've been hearing a lot of noises coming from down here.
He decided to bless the collection with holy water, retrieving some from a church in his local neighborhood and returning to the basement to apply it to all the dolls. Clyde, in particular, he set up a camera to document whatever reaction might follow, speaking directly to the doll with the tone of someone who has fully committed to the belief that the thing in front of him is aware and listening to him. Before he could complete what he had come down there to do, Clyde tipped forward on his own, knocking the bottle of holy water over and preventing the blessing from taking place.
From his head, I just took him out of the box about maybe 10 minutes ago. I don't think he's very happy. Okay, so I'll give you a little tour. He's a big toy. His height is about 45 inches in height. So it's a very big toy. It's probably he's probably the size of a 5 or 6 year old, I would say. So you could imagine what type of damage he can do to a person who is not aware that he's special.
The following morning, the owner noticed a bruise on his arm that he believed matched the shape and size of Clyde's hand. He pressed the doll's hand against the bruise for comparison, treating it as evidence rather than coincidence. From then on, monitoring Clyde became the channel's main focus. Cameras were set up throughout the house, and recordings were reviewed constantly, showing how completely the doll had consumed his attention. The footage divided viewers. In some of the clips, Clyde appeared to be staring directly into the camera despite being positioned differently earlier on. In others, a hand seemed to have shifted between recordings. Each video included the owner's calm analysis, reflecting his unwavering belief that the doll was genuinely moving on its own.
A special room for him and the other items. Now I'm thinking about using the closet that's right behind him. Think about putting sensors.
And that is perhaps the most genuinely unsettling aspect of the entire channel. Sitting underneath all of that footage of the doll and the broken cross and the bruise on his arm, at what point does a person become so thoroughly convinced that something supernatural is happening that ordinary events begin reshaping themselves to fit that belief? At what point does the obsession with documenting the paranormal start to alter the way a person perceives the world around them, until the movement of a hollow clown doll in a basement becomes not a question to investigate, but a truth already known? Whether Clyde moved on his own or whether something else entirely was moving inside the mind of the man watching him, the footage that resulted from that question is deeply uncomfortable either way. On February 17th of 2002, a man named Francesco Javier Correa was spending the day at the beach in Chile with his family, filming the kind of footage that families bring back from trips to the shore. Ordinary moments, unremarkable in isolation, the kind of thing that gets watched once and then just sits in a drawer for the rest of time. He had a VHS camcorder with him, and what it recorded that afternoon has been discussed, debated, and circulated within certain communities ever since it first came to wider attention, placing it firmly in the category of footage that refuses to stay quietly in its drawer.
El día está precioso hoy día, precioso, ¿no? Sí, está al máximo.
Nada, es un espejismo que dimos.
¿Cómo apareció de repente?
No sé.
The family was enjoying the day by the water when the camera captured something emerging from the sea. It was not a wave, it was not a vessel in any conventional sense, but a massive object rising slowly out of the surface of the water with a size and a presence that Francisco described as far beyond anything an ordinary submarine could account for. The object was enormous, its coloration unusual against the surrounding water and sky, and its behavior, the slow, deliberate way it rose and then disappeared beneath the surface again, didn't match any conventional maritime activity that the people watching it could identify in the moment.
Ahí tundió ya. Se le ve la pura
Es posible que sea un submarino.
No.
Porque no son de esa forma. Y aparte que es muy bajo. Está muy bajo aquí. Pero mire, oh,
Se está desapareciendo, ¿no? Que cada vez se va hundiendo más.
¿Lo está grabando? Sí. Pero mire cómo se hunde.
The The footage spread first among people fascinated by the phenomenon known as USOs, or unidentified submersible objects, a category of unexplained sightings that occupies a specific and long-established place in the broader conversation about things witnessed at sea that resist straightforward classification. Unlike the more widely discussed aerial phenomenon, USOs involve objects seen entering, exiting, or moving beneath the water, and the history of reported sightings goes back further than most people realize, drawn from naval records, fishing accounts, and civilian testimonies across every ocean in the world. The Chilean footage gave that community a piece of visual evidence that felt significant precisely because of its source: a family on a beach with a consumer camcorder recording something they hadn't gone looking for and didn't have any obvious motive to fabricate. The object in the footage has the quality that the most compelling unexplained footage tends to have, which is that it doesn't announce itself dramatically. It simply appears, rises, exists in the frame for long enough for the camera to register it clearly, then descends back below the surface and is gone. There is no moment of theatrical revelation, no convenient lighting that makes it look more impressive than it is. Just a large and unusual object behaving in a way that the man filming it couldn't have accounted for.
No se nos alcanza a apreciar. Hace falta los binoculares.
¿Se ve? ¿Se fija que se ve algo arriba de la cosa?
Sí, yo veo, se mueve así. Es como en una parte arriba como blanco y por otra parte como se ve como rojo. ¿En una parte se ve? No, todavía está.
Se está hundiendo. Se hundió.
Analysts generally divide the footage into two explanations. One suggests it captured a genuinely mysterious object operating beyond any publicly known technology. The other points to atmospheric optics. Under rare weather conditions, a phenomenon called a superior mirage can refract light through layers of air at different temperatures, making distant objects appear enlarged, distorted, or even seem to rise from the sea. Ships, coastlines, and clouds have all been documented appearing this way. Some researchers argue that weather conditions on that day matched those known to produce superior mirages, offering a plausible explanation for the mysterious sight. The problem with that explanation is, as the people who rejected it tend to always point out, is that the superior mirages produce images that shimmer, shift, and distort in ways consistent with their optical origin. The object in the footage moves with a solidity and a consistency that sits uneasily alongside the mirage theory, maintaining its form through the duration of its appearance, in a way that optical distortions typically don't. Francisco Correa filmed what he filmed on a family trip to the beach in 2002 with a VHS camcorder that was never intended to document anything extraordinary. More than 2 decades later, what rose out of that water on that afternoon has never been definitively identified, and the footage that captured it remains one of the more quietly persistent pieces of unexplained video to have come out of South America. In October October 2015, a man in Japan was live streaming from his apartment to a small number of viewers when he decided to show off a new lighter that he had recently purchased. The room around him was cluttered with books, stacks of paper, cardboard boxes, and plastic bags, the kind of environment that would give anyone with a basic understanding of fire behavior reason to pause before introducing an open flame. He had also spilled lighter fluid nearby without apparently registering what that meant for what he was about to do.
これがジッポでしょ。サカさんがあれ舞台来てるで、ジッポでしょ。でこれがなんかね、100円ぐらいで売ってたマッチ、永久マッチジッポみたいな、そんな感じ。これよくわかんないんだけど、これでしょ。
The moment he lit the lighter, the flame came up far larger than he had been expecting. He was startled. He threw it, and it landed in a plastic bag filled with paper that caught it immediately. For a short but crucial period of time, he had no idea that this had happened. He continued fiddling with the lighter while the fire behind him was already beginning to take hold and spread through everything around it.
あ、やばいやばいやばいやばい。
His viewers could see exactly what was happening. He had a text-to-speech feature enabled that reads chat messages aloud in a robotic voice, and what that voice was reading out repeatedly and with increasing urgency was viewers telling him to turn around. They were watching the flames grow just a few feet behind him while he sat unaware, and the robotic flatness of the automated voice delivering those warnings only made the footage more surreal to watch. When he finally turned and saw the fire, his response made everything significantly worse. He tried smothering the flames with a cardboard box, which fed them rather than suppressing them. Then he threw a small amount of water on the fire that had already grown well beyond what water alone could address. By the time he accepted that the situation was beyond him, the apartment was largely engulfed. He fled, and the fire reportedly spread to neighboring apartments, and injuries were reported, though the full account of the damage was never clearly established before the original stream, and most of the surrounding information were removed. Bill Meath first appeared on YouTube on June 30th of 2014, and his channel was never going to be mistaken for anything produced with professional ambition. The videos were shot in a static single camera format with almost no editing whatsoever, the kind of setup that suggests someone sitting down in front of a lens because they have something they need to say rather than because they want an audience. The production value was beside the point. The content was entirely focused on religious themes, the Bible, church rituals, reflections on sin and salvation, meditations on the love of God, and the coming end of the world. It felt from the beginning like a video diary of someone working through something deeply personal, using the camera as a confessional rather than a platform.
Did it ever dawn on you how much God loves you? Have you stopped to think? God so loved the world he sent his son Jesus. To die for the world, yes, but personally to die for you. He loves you so much.
Something about it was unsettling almost immediately, and it took just a few videos before the reason became fully clear. With each new upload, Bill's physical condition was visibly changing. His face was showing signs of something wrong. Weight dropping rapidly, features beginning to distort in ways that couldn't be attributed to lighting or camera angles. His eyes carrying the dim and exhausted look of a body under serious strain. Viewers who had found the channel early enough to watch the progression from the beginning had a front row seat to a deterioration that unfolded across 4 months of uploads, the kind of timeline that makes the change between one video and the next feel sudden even when you know it has been happening gradually.
He wants you to live with him forever in his kingdom. And that kingdom is coming a lot sooner than any of us understand or realize. Here's a good way to find out if God loves you and how much He does. Go to the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and start reading the last few chapters of those 4 books, and you'll learn what Jesus went through.
Bill eventually revealed on camera that he had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. What had begun as a toothache had developed into a tumor, and by the time it was identified, the illness was already well established. He talked about it the way that he talked about everything on his channel, through the lens of faith, framing suffering as a test of the soul, finding in his own physical decline a subject for the same kind of spiritual reflection that he had been bringing to every topic since the channel began. He expressed hope that surgery would help. In a later video, the swelling on the right side of his face was visible and significant. The physical reality of the illness no longer something that the camera could soften or the viewer could overlook. What is remarkable about Bill Meath's channel, and what makes it so difficult to watch in retrospect, is that he never stopped. He just kept on filming as his condition worsened. He kept on talking about his faith and about Christ and about God, kept turning the camera on himself in a room that appeared to contain very few other people, and kept uploading with consistency that suggested the videos were important to him in a way that went beyond anything an audience could provide. He wasn't performing for viewers. He was doing something that he needed to do regardless of whether anyone was watching or not. His final upload came on August 21st of 2014. The title was 10-Hour Surgery Tomorrow. There was no narration in it, no voice at all, just silent footage accompanied by text asking viewers to pray for him, for the surgeon, and for whatever the outcome would be. It was the most stripped back video on a channel that had never been anything other than stripped back. And the absence of his voice in that final upload carried a weight that everything preceding it had been building toward without anyone realizing it. After that, the channel went silent. There was no new uploads, no updates from family or friends, and no official explanation ever followed. For many viewers, the silence itself became the answer. Bill Meath's channel had since become an unintended digital memorial. What makes it unsettling isn't horror or shocking twists, but its quiet intimacy. Across 4 months of videos, he sat alone with his camera and his faith, speaking about God's love to an unseen audience while his health visibly declined. The recordings preserve not just his final months, but a deeply personal experience of hope, isolation, and mortality. There are videos that circulate on the internet for years without anyone being able to verify where they came from, who made them, or what actually happened to the people in them. Most of those videos eventually find their way to an explanation of some kind, even if that explanation arrives years after the footage first spread. This one hasn't though. What is known as the deep web young girl kidnapped video occupies a particular place in the folklore of early YouTube and the darker corners of the internet that surrounds it. A piece of footage that has never been fully explained, whose original upload has long been considered lost, and which now survives only through re-uploads on a single YouTube channel that nobody can trace definitively back to the original source. The footage itself is deeply uncomfortable to watch, and the discomfort doesn't come from anything graphic or dramatized. It comes from the accumulation of small details that each carry their own weight and that build over the course of the recording into something that is very difficult to attribute to fiction. A young woman is inside a filthy room. A timer visible on screen indicates that the camera has been recording her for more than 13 hours by the time the footage that has circulated publicly begins. She appears to have barricaded herself in the room using whatever materials were available to her, and she has what appears to be a limited and dwindling supply of food and water. She is aware of the camera, and at one point she notices it and moves cautiously towards the center of the room, the way someone moves when they are trying to determine whether something in their environment is a threat or a resource. Later in the footage, she holds up a handwritten sign. She has run out of water. She is asking for help from anyone who can see the broadcast. She says she has been there for several days, though she never reveals where there is, and nothing visible in the footage provides a reliable indication of a location. The lack of verified information surrounding the footage fueled years of speculation. Some linked it to the internet legend of red rooms, secret live streams where victims are allegedly harmed for paying audiences, though no credible evidence has ever confirmed such broadcasts exist. Others believed that the girl was genuinely trapped, using whatever equipment she had to plead for help. Another view is that the video was an intentionally crafted horror project designed to mimic real distress by combining convincing details. The countdown timer, the handwritten sign, the limited supplies, barricaded room, and low-quality recording. The footage leaves every interpretation unresolved. The moment that has generated the most sustained discussion is the editing. Whatever conclusion the various theories point towards, the footage resolves the same way regardless. Someone begins breaking through the barricade from the other side. The sounds of the barrier giving way are audible before anything becomes visible, and then the person forcing their way into the room appears, and the recording suddenly ends. Not gradually, not with any indication of what the young woman's response was or what happened in the moments immediately after the room was breached. It simply just stops. Whether the person who came through that barricade was someone who had seen the broadcast and responded to it, or someone whose relationship to the young woman and her situation was something entirely different, has never been established. The original footage is gone. The re-uploads are all that remain, and what happened after the camera stopped recording is a question that more than a decade of internet scrutiny has never managed to answer.
This guy, he basically thinks he's living out in Fresno. Now this guy, he was driving with his girlfriend and he said that he hit something and that by the time he got out of the car, it was gone.
On February 2nd of 2004, a man named Michael Lacoma drove out to the area near Fresno, California for a solo camping trip. He brought his cell phone with him and was filming the landscape around his campsite in the casual, unhurried way of someone enjoying the solitude of being away from everyone. Panning across the view, showing the simple setup of his camp, taking in the hillside above him, nothing about that day suggested it was going to produce footage that would still be discussed years later.
Beautiful view. Here's my campsite, simple. It's nice to get away, get some peace and quiet.
Then he noticed movement on the hillside. Whatever was up there caught his attention mid-pan, and the shift in his voice when he first registered it is immediate and unperformed. The involuntary response of someone whose brain has just sent a signal that something in the environment doesn't fit the expected pattern. He described it in the moment as looking like a wolf, but something about that indication doesn't sit right with him even after he said it. The creature was moving on 2 feet. It was descending the slope in a series of large rapid leaps that covered ground at a speed and in the manner that a four-legged animal would produce differently from what the camera appeared to be capturing. He watched it long enough to become genuinely unsettled and then made the decision that most people would make in the same situation. He decided he shouldn't be up there and started moving away from the hillside.
Get an idea of where I'm at. Shape up there. What the hell is that? Oh my God.
The footage he captured in those moments is poor quality in the way that a cell phone video from 2004 tends to be. Limited resolution, unstable framing, the kind of image that gives analysts enough to work with, but not enough to settle anything definitively. The figure visible on the slope is real in the sense that something is clearly there and clearly moving, but the specifics of what that something is remains genuinely contested by anyone who has spent time examining the clip carefully. The footage eventually became part of a documentary produced by Fierce Earth Productions, released approximately 15 years ago, with the company's YouTube channel existing solely to host that single video. The filmmakers interviewed Michael about what he had seen that day, and his account in the interview added detail to what the footage alone couldn't fully convey. He described hearing a noise from the direction of the boulders further up the hill first, the sound of an animal moving around, before he looked up and saw the figure. His initial instinct was a large animal, and his mind went to the wolf before the way it was moving complicated that assessment beyond the point where he could comfortably hold on to it.
You know, I've never seen anything like it. Camping outdoors a lot, and of course I didn't bring my gun like I normally do. But I had my tent set up here, kind of filming, so you know my girlfriend could see what's going on where I'm at, share that a little bit. You know, tent, chairs, and I heard a little noise up the hill here, like an animal's running around. So, look up here, these boulders, I seen something that looked like a wolf jumping in and out.
The documentary's creators placed particular emphasis on a specific geographical fact when examining Michael's account. By the early 2000s, wolves had become extremely rare in the California wilderness, making a wolf sighting in that area notable even before the question of how the creature was moving entered the conversation. What was descending that hillside on 2 feet near Fresno in February of 2004 has never been definitively identified. Michael Lacoma has maintained consistently that he cannot explain what he saw that day, and that the footage he captured in those few seconds has never produced a conclusion that anyone examining this video has ever been willing to accept. Some of these recordings eventually found explanations, others never did. Whether they captured something that was ordinary or something far stranger, well, that is up to you. I just want to say thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.